It was December 28th, 2025, at 2:47 a.m., when a dream so vivid and disturbing that I couldn't distinguish it from reality drove me to the shores of Lake Galilee. Yes, I was there, filming additional content, and there, surrounded by water so still it looked like polished obsidian, reflecting the last remnants of starlight before dawn, with mist rising from the surface like the breath of God. Himself hovering over the deep, Jesus appeared before me and spoke words that shattered everything I thought I understood about what's coming in January 2026. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. You've been chosen to hear this. And what I'm about to share with you over these next few nights, what Jesus revealed to me in 3 consecutive encounters at this very lakeside, will either transform your January or leave you completely unprepared for what's about to unfold in the spiritual realm. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. I need you to leave your prayer request in the comments below. I don't care how impossible your situation seems. I don't care if you've prayed about it 1,000 times. Leave it there, because what Jesus showed me about January 2026 has everything to do with unanswered prayers, with breakthrough, with the ending of seasons that have gone on far too long. And if you're a true believer, if you're someone who doesn't just want entertainment, but actually wants to hear what the Spirit is saying, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell, because I'm going to be sharing things in the coming weeks that YouTube's algorithm doesn't want you to see. I'm going to be speaking truths that make comfortable Christianity very, very uncomfortable. Some of you know me as Jonathan Rumi, the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, but I need you to understand something. I'm not speaking to you tonight as an actor. I'm speaking to you as a brother, as someone who has spent years not just portraying Jesus, but pursuing him, studying him, desperately seeking to know him beyond the scripts and the cameras and the acclaim. What happened to me at this lakeside wasn't acting. It wasn't imagination. It was an encounter that has left me undone. Let me take you back to that moment. The air temperature was probably in the low 50s, cold enough that I could see my breath, cold enough that I'd wrapped myself in a heavy wool blanket I'd grabbed from my room. I hadn't planned to come here. I'd been asleep or trying to sleep in a small house we'd rented near the production site. But in the dream, I was drowning. Not in water, but in time itself. I was sinking through days and weeks and months, and I could see people I loved, people I didn't even know, but somehow recognized reaching for me, calling out, but I couldn't reach them. And there was a date glowing like fire in the darkness. January 2026, over and over. January 2026. I woke up gasping, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might be having a heart attack. And I can't explain this rationally, I heard a voice, gentle but insistent. Come to the water. So I went. The walk from the house to the shore took maybe 10 minutes. There was no moon, it had already set, but the stars were so bright, so impossibly bright, that I could see the path clearly. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light, and I remember thinking how the ancients must have felt, looking up at this same sky, feeling so small and yet so seen. When I reached the water's edge, I stopped. The mist was rising, I mentioned that already, but I need you to understand what this looked like. It wasn't just fog. It was like the lake itself was breathing, exhaling these tendrils of vapor that caught the starlight and glowed with an almost ethereal luminescence. The water was absolutely still. No wind, no ripples. Just this perfect, mirror-like surface that reflected the sky so perfectly I felt like I was standing between two heavens. I stood there, the blanket wrapped around my shoulders, and I started to pray. Not eloquently, not with any kind of structure. I just started talking to God, asking him what the dream meant, asking him why he'd brought me here, asking him, and that's when I saw him. He was standing on the water, not walking toward me, just standing there, maybe 30 feet from shore, his figure solid and real and impossible all at once. The mist swirled around his feet, and he was wearing simple robes, not the costume from the show, but something that looked ancient and timeless and somehow more real than anything I'd ever seen. I want to be clear about something. I've played Jesus for years now. I've studied his mannerisms, his speech patterns, his expressions. I've immersed myself in the Gospels and the historical context and the theological implications of every word he spoke. But this was not my imagination filling in gaps. This was not my subconscious creating a comforting vision. This was him. Jonathan, he said, and his voice carried across the water without echo, clear and warm and filled with an affection that immediately brought tears to my eyes. Do you know why you're here? I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words. I just shook my head. He smiled, not the gentle, patient smile I'd learned to portray on screen, but something more complex. There was joy in it, yes, but also sorrow, deep sorrow. January, he said. You dreamed of January. I nodded, finding my voice. What does it mean, Lord? What's happening in January? He began to walk toward me then, his feet moving across the surface of the water as naturally as if it were stone. The mist parted before him, and as he drew closer, I could see his face more clearly. His eyes. I'll never forget his eyes. They held such depth, such knowing, such fierce love that I felt simultaneously exposed and completely safe. January 2026, he said, stopping at the water's edge, just a few feet from where I stood, is a threshold, a doorway, a point of no return for many of my children. The way he said it, the weight in those words, made my blood run cold despite the blanket. What kind of threshold? I asked. He turned and gestured toward the lake, toward the mist, toward the darkness that still held the far shore hidden. Do you see this water, Jonathan? Do you see how still it is? Yes, Lord. This is how most of my church has become. Still, stagnant, reflecting the sky but never moving, never flowing, never fulfilling the purpose for which I created them. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a tremor of emotion that shook me. They think they're at peace. They think they're waiting on me, but they're not waiting. They're sleeping, and January is when I'm going to shake the water. As he spoke those words, a wind came from nowhere, sudden and strong enough that it whipped the blanket from my shoulders and sent it tumbling down the shore. The surface of the lake, which had been like glass, suddenly erupted with ripples, then waves, then whitecaps that crashed against the rocks at my feet. But Jesus stood unmoved, the water still calm beneath his feet even as chaos surrounded him. I'm going to shake everything that can be shaken, he continued, his voice rising above the wind. Ministries that have been built on sand, relationships that have been held together by comfort rather than covenant, careers that have become idols, bank accounts that have become security blankets, health that has been taken for granted, time that has been wasted. He turned to look at me directly, and I felt the full force of his gaze. And prayers, Jonathan, prayers that have been prayed without faith, without expectation, without the belief that I actually hear and actually answer. In January, I'm going to answer prayers that people have given up on. I'm going to move in situations that have been declared dead. I'm going to resurrect dreams that were buried years ago. My heart was pounding. That sounds like good news, Lord, like breakthrough. It is, he said, for those who are ready, for those who have been faithful in the waiting, for those who have kept their lamps filled with oil, even in the darkness. His expression grew more serious. But for those who have grown comfortable in their complacency, for those who have made peace with their powerlessness, for those who have convinced themselves that my promises were for another generation, January will be devastating. The wind died as suddenly as it had come. The water calmed, but I was shaking now and not from the cold. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why me? He smiled again, and this time it was tender. Because you have a voice, Jonathan. Because people listen to you. Because you've been given a platform not for your own glory but for mine. And because you too need to hear this. You too have prayers you've stopped believing I'll answer. He was right. God, he was so right. I felt it like a knife to the heart, all the secret doubts, all the prayers I'd prayed out of obligation rather than expectation, all the dreams I'd quietly buried because hoping hurt too much. What do you want me to do? I whispered. Tell them, he said. Tell them what's coming. Tell them that January is not just another month. Tell them that I'm about to move in ways that will leave no doubt that I am still God, still sovereign, still intimately involved in the details of their lives. He began to walk backward, moving away from the shore, back onto the water. Wait, I called out. What specifically should I tell them? What should they do to prepare? Come back tomorrow night, he said, his voice already fading as the mist began to thicken around him. Same time, same place. I'll show you more. I'll show you what January holds for those who are ready. And then he was gone. Just gone. The mist swirled where he'd been standing, and the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. I stood there, trembling, tears streaming down my face, my mind racing with everything I'd just seen and heard. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for the sun to break the horizon, long enough for the mist to burn away, long enough for the lake to become just a lake again. Beautiful, yes, but ordinary. Natural, except nothing felt ordinary anymore. I walked back to the house in a daze. I tried to process what had happened. I tried to pray, to thank God, to ask for clarity, but all I could do was repeat one phrase over and over. January 2026. January 2026. Now I'm here, recording this, knowing that some of you will think I've lost my mind. Some of you will dismiss this as attention-seeking or delusion or a publicity stunt for the show. And honestly, I don't care. I can't care. Because what Jesus showed me was too real, too urgent, too important to keep to myself out of fear of what people might think. If you're watching this, it's not an accident. You were meant to see this message. You were meant to hear about January, and I'm begging you, I'm literally begging you, don't scroll past this. Don't dismiss this. Don't let this be just another video you watched and forgot. Something is coming, something that will separate those who truly believe from those who just go through the motions. Something that will reveal what's been built on rock and what's been built on sand. Something that will answer the prayers of the faithful and expose the emptiness of the comfortable. Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that lakeside. Jesus told me to return, and I'm going to obey. And when I do, I'm going to share with you the second part of what he revealed. The specific areas where he's going to move in January, the specific warnings he gave, the specific promises he made. But I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to commit. I need you to decide that you're going to see this through, that you're going to watch all 4 parts of this message, that you're going to take seriously what Jesus is saying about the month ahead. Leave a comment right now. Just type "I'm marked" if you're committing to hear the full message. Type January 2026 if you're ready for whatever God is about to do. Type "I believe" if you're choosing faith over fear. And subscribe, please. Because what I'm going to share tomorrow night is even more intense, even more specific, even more challenging than what I've shared tonight. The sun is fully up now as I record this. The lake looks peaceful, beautiful, normal. But I know what I saw. I know who I spoke with. And I know that in just a few hours, when darkness falls again, I'll be back at that water's edge, waiting for him to show me more. Will you be waiting too? Will you come back tomorrow night to hear the rest? I pray you will, because January is coming whether we're ready or not, and Jesus is about to move. I'm recording this at 6:47 p.m. on December 28th, and I can already feel the pull to return to the lakeside. The sun is setting behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson, and I know with a certainty I can't explain, that he'll be there again tonight. But before I go, before I share what happened during the second encounter, I need to address something. The response to last night's video has been overwhelming. Thousands of you left comments. Thousands of you typed "I'm marked" and January 2026 and "I believe." And I've been reading them, praying over them, weeping over some of them because your stories, your pain, your desperate need for breakthrough, it's exactly what Jesus was talking about. But I also saw the other comments, the skeptics, the mockers, the people who said I'm manipulating you, that I'm using my platform irresponsibly, that I'm creating false hope or unnecessary fear. And to those people, I want to say this as gently but as firmly as I can. I understand your skepticism. I do. But I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to seek Jesus yourself. I'm asking you to press in and ask him if what I'm sharing is true. Because tonight, the second night, what he showed me was so specific, so detailed, so impossible to have come from my own imagination that I'm still shaking as I prepare to tell you about it. For those of you who are just joining who didn't see the first part, let me catch you up briefly. Jesus appeared to me at the lakeside at 2:47 a.m. on December 28th. He told me that January 2026 is a threshold, a point of no return, a moment when he's going to shake everything that can be shaken and answer prayers that people have given up on. He told me to come back for 3 nights, and this is the second night. Now let me take you there. I arrived at the lakeside at 2:30 a.m., earlier than the previous night because I couldn't sleep, couldn't rest, couldn't think about anything except what he might reveal next. The temperature had dropped significantly. It was in the low 40s, and a wind was blowing in from across the water, steady and cold, carrying with it the scent of minerals and fish and something else, something clean and ancient that I can only describe as the smell of eternity. The sky was different tonight. Clouds had moved in, thick and low, obscuring most of the stars, but there were breaks in the cloud cover, and through those breaks, starlight poured down in visible shafts, like spotlights from heaven illuminating specific patches of the dark water. I'd brought a thermos of coffee this time, and a camping chair, and a flashlight. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me was trying to make this more normal, more manageable, more like a planned meeting than a supernatural encounter. But as soon as I set up the chair and sat down, wrapping myself in 2 blankets this time, I knew that nothing about this was going to be normal. The wind picked up. The waves grew larger, slapping against the rocks with a rhythm that sounded almost like a heartbeat. And in one of those shafts of starlight, about 50 feet from shore, I saw him. He was standing on the water again, but this time he wasn't still. He was moving, not walking toward me, but pacing, his hands gesturing as if he were in the middle of an intense conversation. And then I realized he was praying. Jesus was praying. I stood up, the blankets falling away, the cold forgotten. "Lord?" I called out. He turned toward me, and even from that distance, I could see that his face was wet with tears. Not just tears, he was weeping. Openly, unashamedly weeping, and the sight of it broke something in me. "Jonathan," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "come closer." I hesitated. "Lord, I can't walk on water." He smiled through his tears, then weighed. I looked down at the water lapping at my feet, at my hiking boots, at the absurdity of what he was asking, and then I kicked off my boots, rolled up my jeans, and stepped into the water. It was shockingly cold, so cold that it felt like knives stabbing into my feet and ankles. But I kept walking, kept wading, the rocky bottom uneven beneath my feet, the water rising to my knees, then my thighs. The waves pushed against me, trying to knock me off balance, but I kept my eyes on him, kept moving forward. When I was about 10 feet away, he raised his hand. "That's close enough." I stood there shivering violently now, the water at mid-thigh, my teeth chattering. "Lord, why are you weeping?" He looked past me, toward the shore, toward the land beyond, toward something I couldn't see. "Because of what I'm about to do in January. Because of who will receive it and who will reject it. Because I know the hearts of my people, Jonathan, and so many of them, so many, are not ready for breakthrough. They say they want it, they pray for it, but they're not ready for what it will require of them." He turned back to me, and the intensity in his eyes was almost unbearable. "Do you want to see? Do you want to see what I see when I look at my church right now, at the end of 2025, on the edge of January?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. He reached out his hand toward me, not quite touching me, and suddenly the scene around us changed. I was no longer standing in the water, or rather I was, but I was also somewhere else, seeing something else overlaid on reality like a double exposure. I saw churches, thousands of them, millions of them, all over the world, and they were full of people, but the people were asleep, literally asleep, slumped in pews, heads bowed, eyes closed, completely unconscious while the pastors preached and the worship teams played and the programs continued. "This is what I see," Jesus said, his voice echoing in this vision space. "A sleeping church, a church that has confused routine with relationship, attendance with intimacy, knowledge with transformation." The scene shifted. Now I saw individuals, people in their homes, in their cars, in their offices. They were praying, but their prayers were lifeless, mechanical, like they were reading from a script they'd memorized years ago and no longer believed. Their mouths moved, but their hearts were somewhere else entirely, on their problems, their fears, their schedules, their entertainment. "They pray," Jesus said, "but they don't expect me to answer. They've prayed for so long without seeing breakthrough that they've convinced themselves breakthrough isn't coming. They've made peace with their Egypt. They've grown comfortable in their wilderness. They've stopped believing that I'm actually going to do what I promised." I felt tears streaming down my face, mixing with the lake water that was splashing up from the waves. "But Lord, some of them have been praying for years, decades. They've been faithful. They've been patient. Why haven't you answered?" He looked at me with such tenderness that I almost couldn't bear it. "I have been answering, Jonathan. I've been answering all along. But not in the way they expected, not in the timing they demanded. I've been answering by preparing them, by refining them, by teaching them to trust me more than they trust the answer they think they need." The vision shifted again. Now I saw people, specific people, though I didn't recognize them, and I saw their prayers hanging over them like clouds. Some of the clouds were dark and heavy, full of years of accumulated petitions. And as I watched, I saw Jesus moving among these people, touching the clouds, and they began to glow, to pulse with light. January, he said. In January, I'm going to release the answers. I'm going to break open the heavens over my faithful ones. I'm going to move in ways that will be undeniable, unmistakable, impossible to attribute to coincidence or luck or human effort. My heart was pounding. What kind of answers, Lord? What specifically are you going to do? He began to walk, still on the water, but moving now in a circle around me as I stood there shivering. And as he walked, he spoke, and with each statement, the wind grew stronger, the waves grew higher, and the shafts of starlight grew brighter. I'm going to heal bodies that doctors have given up on, he said. Cancers will disappear, chronic pain will cease, infertility will end. Diseases that have plagued families for generations will be broken in January. A wave crashed into me, nearly knocking me over, but I steadied myself. I'm going to restore relationships that seem beyond repair, he continued. Prodigal children will come home, broken marriages will be healed, estranged family members will reconcile, friendships that ended in betrayal will be renewed in January. Another wave, larger this time. The water was at my waist now, though I hadn't moved deeper. I'm going to provide financially for those who have been faithful in their giving even when they had nothing to give, he said, his voice rising. Debts will be canceled, jobs will appear, businesses will succeed, inheritances will come, provision will flow from sources people never expected in January. The wind was howling now, and I had to shout to be heard. Lord, this sounds too good to be true. This sounds like prosperity gospel, like name it, claim it, like... He stopped circling and stood directly in front of me, and his voice cut through the storm like a sword. This is not prosperity gospel, Jonathan. This is the gospel of the kingdom. This is me being faithful to my promises. This is me rewarding those who have sought me for me, not just for what I can give them. This is me demonstrating to a watching world that I am still God, still active, still intimately involved in the lives of my children. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter but somehow more powerful. But here's what most people don't understand. Here's what I need you to tell them. The breakthrough in January is not the end. It's the beginning. It's not a reward for past faithfulness. It's an equipping for future assignment. The vision faded, and I was back in the regular water, the regular lake, the regular night, except nothing felt regular anymore. What do you mean? I asked. Jesus moved closer, close enough now that I could have reached out and touched him if I dared. I'm going to answer prayers in January because I'm preparing my people for what's coming in the rest of 2026 and beyond. I'm going to heal them so they can be healers. I'm going to provide for them so they can be providers. I'm going to restore their relationships so they can be reconcilers. I'm going to break their chains so they can be chain breakers. He reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder, and the warmth that radiated from his touch was like fire, driving away the cold, driving away the doubt, driving away everything except the absolute certainty that what he was saying was true. January is not about comfort, Jonathan. It's about commissioning. I'm about to release an army of believers who have been refined in the waiting, who have learned to trust me in the darkness, who have kept their faith when everything around them said to give up. And when I move in their lives in January, when I answer their prayers in ways that leave no doubt it was me, they're going to go out and shake the world. I was sobbing now, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. Lord, I want to be part of that. I want to be ready, but I'm scared. I'm scared I'm not faithful enough, not refined enough, not... You're not, he said simply. None of you are. That's the point. This isn't about your adequacy. It's about my faithfulness. It's about my power being perfected in your weakness. He removed his hand from my shoulder and began to walk backward, moving away from me again. Tomorrow night, he said. One more night. Come back tomorrow, and I'll show you what happens to those who reject the breakthrough. I'll show you the consequences of staying asleep when I'm calling my people to wake up. I'll show you why January is not just an opportunity, it's a deadline. Wait, I called out just like the night before. What should I tell people to do? How should they prepare? He was already fading into the darkness, but his voice carried clearly across the water. Tell them to repent of their unbelief. Tell them to repent of the ways they've limited me in their minds. Tell them to repent of making peace with less than I promised them. Tell them to get their lamps ready, because the bridegroom is coming, and he's coming in January." And then he was gone. I stood there in the water for a long time, until the cold became unbearable, until my legs were numb, until the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. When I finally waded back to shore, I collapsed on the rocks, wrapped myself in the blankets I'd abandoned, and just wept. I wept for joy at what he'd promised. I wept in fear at what he'd warned. I wept in repentance for all the ways I'd limited him, all the prayers I'd stopped believing he'd answer, all the dreams I'd buried because hoping hurt too much. And I wept because I knew that what he'd shown me was just the beginning, that tomorrow night, the third night, he was going to show me something even more intense, even more challenging, even more urgent. It's full dark now as I finish recording this. I'm sitting in the house, dry clothes on, hot coffee in my hands, but I can still feel the cold of that water, can still feel the warmth of his hand on my shoulder, can still hear his voice echoing in my mind. January is not about comfort, it's about commissioning. If you're watching this, I need you to understand something. This message isn't just information. It's not just an interesting story or an inspiring testimony. This is a call. This is Jesus himself through me calling you to wake up, to believe again, to expect him to move in your life in January. But it's also a warning. And tomorrow night, I'm going to share the warning in full. I'm going to share what he showed me about those who reject the breakthrough, who stay comfortable in their complacency, who refuse to believe that God is about to move. I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to take inventory of your prayers. I need you to think about the things you've been asking God for, maybe for years, maybe for decades, the healing you've prayed for, the relationship you've prayed for, the provision you've prayed for, the breakthrough you've prayed for. And I need you to ask yourself honestly, do I still believe he's going to answer? Or have I given up? Have I made peace with the problem? Have I convinced myself that maybe it's not his will, maybe it's not his timing, maybe it's just not going to happen? Because if you've given up, if you've stopped believing, then what Jesus is about to do in January is going to pass you by. Not because he doesn't love you, not because he doesn't want to bless you, but because faith is the currency of the kingdom. And without faith, it's impossible to please him, impossible to receive from him, impossible to participate in what he's doing. Leave a comment right now. Tell me what you've given up on. Tell me what prayer you've stopped believing he'll answer. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Because I'm telling you, I'm prophesying to you, that January is the month God is going to resurrect dead dreams and answer impossible prayers. But only for those who believe. Only for those who are willing to wade into the cold water, to stand in the storm, to keep their eyes on him even when the waves are crashing and the wind is howling and everything in the natural says to turn back. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. Come back tomorrow night for the third and most intense part of this message. Because what Jesus showed me on the third night, what he revealed about the consequences of rejecting breakthrough, about the judgment that's coming alongside the blessing, about the separation that's about to happen in the body of Christ, it's going to challenge everything you think you know about God's love and God's justice. The clock is ticking, January is coming, and Jesus is about to move. The question is, will you be ready? I'm recording this at 11:43 p.m. on December 28th, and I'm not going to wait until 2:47 a.m. to go to the lakeside tonight. I can't. Something is different. The atmosphere itself feels charged, electric, like the air before a lightning strike. And I know, with a certainty that's almost terrifying, that tonight's encounter is going to be the most intense yet. Before I go, I need to address what's been happening in the comments. Thousands more of you have shared your stories since last night. I've read about marriages that have been dead for years. I've read about children who've been addicted to drugs for decades. I've read about financial devastation, terminal diagnoses, ministry failures, shattered dreams, and woven through almost every comment is the same thread. I've prayed about this for so long, I don't know if I can believe anymore. That's exactly what Jesus was talking about. That's exactly the unbelief he's calling us to repent of. But I've also seen the other comments, the angry ones. People accusing me of being a false prophet, of date setting, of manipulating vulnerable people, of using Jesus' name to build my platform. And to those people, I want to say this. I understand your anger. I understand your skepticism. Because if what I'm sharing isn't true, then yes, I deserve your anger. I deserve to be called out as a fraud and a manipulator. But if it is true, if Jesus really did appear to me, if he really is about to move in unprecedented ways in January 2026, then your anger isn't really directed at me. It's directed at him. It's directed at a God who refuses to fit into your theological boxes, who moves in ways that make you uncomfortable, who speaks through imperfect vessels like me. So I'm asking you, what if it's true? What if everything I've shared over the past 2 nights is actually from Jesus? What are you going to do with that? Because tonight, the third night, I'm going to share the part of the message that's hardest to hear, the part about judgment, the part about consequences, the part about what happens to those who reject the breakthrough that's coming. And I'm going to share it whether it makes you comfortable or not. Let me take you to the lakeside one final time. I left the house at midnight. I didn't bring coffee or blankets or a chair this time. I brought nothing but myself and a flashlight, and even that felt like too much, like I was trying to bring light into a place where God Himself was about to illuminate everything. The walk to the shore was different tonight. The wind that had been steady the previous night was now gusting, violent, tearing at my clothes and hair. The clouds were lower, thicker, completely obscuring the stars. It was the kind of darkness that feels almost solid, almost tangible, the kind of darkness that makes you understand why ancient people feared the night. But I wasn't afraid. Or rather, I was afraid, but it was the fear of the Lord, that holy terror that comes from knowing you're about to stand in the presence of the Almighty, that you're about to see and hear things that will mark you forever. When I reached the water's edge, I turned off my flashlight. The darkness was absolute. I couldn't see the water, couldn't see the shore, couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. I just stood there, listening to the waves crashing against the rocks, feeling the wind tearing at me, waiting, and then light, not gradual, not a slow dawn, sudden, blazing, overwhelming light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I threw my arm up to shield my eyes, stumbling backward, and when I could finally see again, He was there. But He wasn't standing on the water this time. He was standing on the shore, right in front of me, so close I could have touched Him, and His appearance, it was different. He still wore the simple robes, still had the same face, the same eyes. But there was something else now, an intensity, a severity, a quality that made me think of the Jesus who cleansed the temple, who called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, who spoke of outer darkness and weeping and gnashing of teeth. "Jonathan," He said, and His voice was like thunder, "are you ready to see the rest?" I fell to my knees. I didn't plan to. My legs just gave out. "Yes, Lord," I whispered. He reached down and pulled me to my feet with a strength that was both gentle and irresistible. Then look, then... He turned me around, His hands on my shoulders, directing my gaze toward the land, toward the darkness beyond the shore. And as I looked, the scene changed again, that same double vision I'd experienced the night before, reality overlaid with something more real than reality. I saw a massive crowd of people, millions of them. They were standing in a vast plain that stretched to the horizon, and they were all facing the same direction, all looking toward something I couldn't quite see. And above them, the sky was splitting open, not metaphorically, but literally splitting, like a curtain being torn in two. And through the opening, light was pouring down, brilliant and pure and almost unbearably beautiful. "January," Jesus said, His voice resonating through the vision. "This is January. This is the moment when heaven breaks through, when I answer the prayers of the faithful, when I move in power that cannot be denied or explained away." I watched as the light touched certain people in the crowd. When it did, they began to glow, to transform, to rise up off the ground as if gravity had released its hold on them, and their faces were radiant with joy, with wonder, with the kind of ecstasy that comes from seeing impossible prayers answered, from experiencing breakthrough after years of waiting. "These are my faithful ones," Jesus said. "These are the ones who kept believing when everything said to give up. These are the ones who continued to pray even when they saw no evidence of my movement. These are the ones who trusted me more than they trusted their circumstances." The scene was beautiful, overwhelming. I was weeping again, watching these people experience their breakthrough, watching their joy, watching them worship with an abandon I'd never seen before. But then Jesus turned me slightly, directing my gaze to a different part of the crowd, and what I saw made my blood run cold. There were others, just as many, maybe more, who were not being touched by the light. They were standing in the same plain, under the same open heaven, with the same opportunity for breakthrough, but the light was passing over them, not because God was withholding it, but because they were closed, shut down. Their arms were crossed, their faces were skeptical, their postures were defensive, and as I watched, I could hear their thoughts, not audibly, but somehow I knew what they were thinking. "This can't be real. God doesn't work this way anymore. I've been disappointed too many times. I'm not falling for this again." This is probably just emotional manipulation, just hype, just another false promise. I'm fine where I am. I don't need breakthrough. I've learned to be content. Maybe this is for other people, but not for me. I'm not worthy enough, not faithful enough, not... Lord, I gasped. They're so close. The breakthrough is right there. Why won't they receive it? His grip on my shoulders tightened. Because they've chosen unbelief over faith. They've chosen comfort over transformation. They've chosen the familiar prison over the unknown freedom. And Jonathan, his voice broke slightly. This is what breaks my heart. Not that I'm unwilling to move in their lives, but that they're unwilling to receive what I'm offering. The vision intensified. I watched as the people who had received the breakthrough began to move, to spread out, to go into all the world with power and authority, and signs and wonders following them. They were healing the sick, casting out demons, preaching the gospel with boldness, transforming communities, shaking nations. But the others, the ones who had rejected the breakthrough, they remained in the plain. And as time passed in the vision, though I don't know how much time because time seemed fluid and strange, I watched them grow bitter, resentful, angry. They began to criticize those who had received breakthrough. It's not real, they said. It's fake, it's manipulation, it's deception. They're being led astray. They began to create theological arguments for why God couldn't possibly be moving in such dramatic ways. That's not how God works, they insisted. That's not biblical. That's dangerous. And then I saw something that made me cry out in horror. I saw the light, the same light that had brought breakthrough to the faithful, begin to harden around those who had rejected it. It became like a shell, like a prison, trapping them in their unbelief, in their skepticism, in their comfortable complacency. No, I shouted. Lord, no. Give them another chance. Let them see. Let them... I have given them chances, Jesus said, and his voice was filled with such sorrow that it was almost unbearable. Years of chances, decades of chances. I have sent prophets and teachers and signs and wonders. I have whispered to them in the night and shouted to them in the day. I have pursued them with a love that will not let them go. But there comes a moment, a threshold, Jonathan, remember, when their choice becomes fixed, when their rejection becomes final, when the door closes. He turned me to face him, and I saw tears streaming down his face again. January is that threshold for many. It's the moment when I separate those who truly believe from those who only claim to believe. It's the moment when I reveal who has been building on rock and who has been building on sand. It's the moment when the wise virgins are separated from the foolish ones. The vision faded, and we were back on the shore, the wind still howling, the waves still crashing. But now there was something else, a rumbling, deep and ominous, coming from beneath our feet. What is that? I asked. The shaking, Jesus said. It's already beginning. Can't you feel it? And I could. The ground beneath my feet was trembling, vibrating with a frequency that I felt in my bones, in my chest, in the very core of my being. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken, he said, his voice rising above the wind and the waves and the rumbling earth. Ministries built on personality rather than my presence. Churches built on programs rather than prayer. Relationships built on convenience rather than covenant. Finances built on human wisdom rather than kingdom principles. Health maintained by human effort rather than divine strength. Time wasted on entertainment rather than invested in eternity. The shaking intensified. Rocks began to tumble down from the hills behind us. The water in the lake began to churn and foam. And in the distance I heard what sounded like buildings collapsing, structures falling, foundations crumbling. But Lord, I cried out, what about your people? What about those who love you but are weak, who are struggling, who are... Those who are truly mine will not be shaken, he said firmly. Those who have built their lives on me, who have made me their foundation, who have sought first my kingdom, they will stand. They will not only stand, they will thrive, they will flourish, they will experience breakthrough beyond anything they've imagined. He stepped closer to me, so close that I could feel the heat radiating from him, could see every detail of his face in the supernatural light that still surrounded him. But those who have been playing church, playing Christian, playing at faith while their hearts are far from me, January will expose them. The shaking will reveal what they've really been building on, and when their false foundations crumble, they will have a choice, to finally turn to me with their whole hearts, or to harden themselves further in their rebellion. The shaking stopped as suddenly as it had started. The wind died, the waves calmed, and in the sudden silence, His voice was soft but absolutely clear. This is why I'm sending you with this message, Jonathan. This is why I've shown you these things over 3 nights, because I love my people too much to let them sleep through the most important moment of their lives, because I'm giving them one final warning, one final invitation, one final chance to wake up and prepare for what's coming. He placed both hands on my shoulders now, and I felt power flowing into me, not my power, but his, filling me, strengthening me, commissioning me for what he was about to ask me to do. Tell them, he said. Tell them everything you've seen. Tell them about the breakthrough that's coming for the faithful. Tell them about the judgment that's coming for the complacent. Tell them about the threshold, about the deadline, about the urgency of this moment. But Lord, I said, my voice shaking, they're going to hate me. They're going to call me a false prophet, a fearmonger, They called me worse, he said simply. And they will call you worse too. But that's not your concern. Your concern is obedience. Your concern is faithfulness. Your concern is delivering the message I've given you, regardless of how it's received. He began to fade then, the light dimming, his form becoming translucent, but his voice remained strong, clear, unmistakable. Tonight actually, since it's already past midnight, you'll record the final part. You'll tell them what to do. You'll give them the practical steps. You'll issue the challenge. And then, Jonathan, you'll trust me with the results. You'll trust me with who receives it and who rejects it. You'll trust me with the harvest that's coming. Wait, I called out one last time. Lord, what about me? What about my own unbelief, my own areas where I've given up, my own... But he was already gone. The light vanished, the darkness returned, and I was alone on the shore with nothing but the sound of the waves and the echo of his words in my mind. I don't know how long I stood there, long enough for the sky to begin lightening in the east, long enough for my legs to stop shaking, long enough for the full weight of what I'd seen and heard to settle into my soul. When I finally walked back to the house, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The lake looked peaceful again, beautiful, normal. But I knew that nothing was normal anymore, that everything had changed, that January was coming, and with it, the most significant spiritual moment of our generation. It's now 7:15 a.m. I haven't slept. I can't sleep. I'm sitting here with my Bible open, with pages and pages of notes from the 3 nights, with a burden so heavy I can barely breathe, because I know what I have to do now. I know what Jesus is asking of me, and it terrifies me. I have to tell you the truth, even if it costs me everything, even if it costs me my reputation, my career, my platform, my comfort. I have to deliver this message exactly as he gave it to me, without softening it, without making it more palatable, without worrying about who it offends or who it alienates. And here's the truth. January 2026 is a threshold. It's a point of no return. It's a moment when God is going to move in unprecedented ways, answering prayers that have been prayed for years, bringing breakthrough that seems impossible, demonstrating his power in ways that leave no room for doubt. But it's also a moment of judgment, a moment of separation, a moment when those who have been playing at faith will be exposed, a moment when the difference between those who truly believe and those who just go through the motions will become undeniably clear. And you, yes, you, watching this right now, you have to decide which side you're going to be on. You have to decide whether you're going to wake up and prepare for breakthrough, or whether you're going to stay comfortable in your complacency and miss the most significant move of God in your lifetime. I know some of you are angry right now. I know some of you think I'm being manipulative, that I'm using fear tactics, that I'm setting dates and making false promises. And honestly, I can't control what you think. I can only tell you what I saw, what I heard, what Jesus showed me over 3 consecutive nights at that lakeside. But I'm begging you, I'm literally begging you, don't let your skepticism, your theological objections, your past disappointments cause you to miss what God is about to do. Don't be like the people in the vision who stood in the plain with heaven opened above them and chose to reject the breakthrough because it didn't fit their expectations. Tomorrow, later today actually, I'm going to record the final part. Part 4. And in that part, I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to tell you exactly what Jesus said to do to prepare for January. I'm going to give you the 30-day challenge that will position you to receive everything he wants to release in your life. But right now, I need you to do something. I need you to stop and pray. I need you to ask Jesus directly, is this message from you? Is Jonathan telling the truth? Is January really going to be what he says it's going to be? And then I need you to listen, really listen, not to your doubts, not to your fears, not to your past disappointments, but to his voice, to the still small voice that speaks truth into your spirit. Leave a comment right now. Tell me what he's saying to you. Tell me if you're feeling the urgency, the weight, the significance of this moment. Tell me if you're ready to prepare for breakthrough or if you're still skeptical, still resistant, still holding back. And subscribe, please. Because what I'm going to share in part 4, the practical application, the specific steps, the 30-day challenge, it's going to be the most important part of this entire message. It's going to be the difference between those who just hear this message and those who actually act on it. The sun is fully up now. A new day has begun, and we're one day closer to January 2026, one day closer to the threshold, one day closer to the moment when everything changes. Are you ready? I'm recording this at 3:17 p.m. on December 29th, 2025, and I'm not at the lakeside anymore. I'm sitting on a rocky outcrop about a mile from the shore, overlooking the entire expanse of the lake, and I can see the exact spot where Jesus appeared to me 3 nights in a row. From this distance, it looks so ordinary, just water and rocks and shoreline, but I know what happened there. I know what I saw, and I know that my life, and hopefully yours, will never be the same. I came back here in the daylight because I needed to see it again. I needed to confirm in my own mind that it was real, that I didn't imagine it, that the most profound spiritual experience of my life actually happened. And as I sit here feeling the sun on my face, hearing the birds calling, watching the light dance on the water, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude and terror in equal measure. Gratitude because Jesus chose to speak to me, to show me what's coming, to trust me with this message. Terror because I know what happens next. I know that after I finish recording this final part, after I give you the practical steps and issue the challenge, I have to release it into the world and trust God with the results. I have to accept that some of you will receive it and some of you will reject it. I have to make peace with the fact that this message might cost me everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start by addressing what's been happening since I posted part 3 last night. The response has been overwhelming, doesn't even begin to cover it. Tens of thousands of comments, messages flooding my inbox, people sharing their own encounters, their own confirmations, their own sense that God is speaking the same message to them. But also, and I need to be honest about this, there's been intense opposition. Not just skepticism, but outright hostility. People calling me a false prophet, a cult leader, a manipulator, a fraud. People saying I'm leading believers astray, that I'm causing unnecessary fear, that I'm dishonoring Jesus by putting words in his mouth. And to those people, I want to say one final time, I understand. I do. If I were watching someone else share this message, I might be skeptical too. But I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to seek Jesus yourself. I'm asking you to press in and ask him if what I'm sharing is true. Because if it is, if January 2026 really is the threshold I've described, then your skepticism could cost you the breakthrough you've been praying for your entire life. Now let me tell you why I came back to this overlook today, and what happened when I did. I arrived here around noon. The hike up from the lakeside took about 30 minutes, winding through rocky terrain dotted with olive trees and wild herbs. The air smelled like rosemary and sage, and the sun was warm on my shoulders. Such a contrast to the cold, dark nights of the encounters. When I reached this outcrop, I sat down on a flat rock and just looked out over the lake. I could see fishing boats in the distance, their white sails bright against the blue water. I could see the town on the far shore, buildings clustered together like they've been for thousands of years. I could see the exact spot where I'd stood in the water, where Jesus had placed his hand on my shoulder, where he'd shown me the visions of what's coming in January. And as I sat there, I started to pray, not eloquently, not with any kind of structure. I just started talking to God, asking him for confirmation, asking him for courage, asking him to help me deliver this final part of the message in a way that would reach the people who need to hear it. And then I heard it. Not an audible voice this time, not a vision, just a knowing, deep in my spirit, as clear as if someone had spoken directly into my ear. Tell them about the oil. I sat up straighter. The oil, Lord? What do you mean? And then it came, not all at once, but in waves, like a download of understanding. The parable of the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish, all of them waiting for the bridegroom, all of them with lamps, but only 5 had oil, only 5 were prepared, only 5 were ready when the bridegroom came at midnight. And the others, the foolish ones, they tried to get oil at the last minute. They tried to borrow from the wise virgins. They tried to buy from the merchants. But it was too late. The door was shut. The wedding feast had begun, and they were left outside. Lord, I whispered, are you saying that January is like the bridegroom coming at midnight? That it's the moment when the door shuts for those who aren't prepared? The knowing intensified, yes, but also more than that. January is the moment when it becomes clear who has oil and who doesn't, who has been preparing and who has been presuming, who has been building intimacy with me and who has been coasting on past experiences. I pulled out my phone and opened my Bible app, scrolling to Matthew 25. I read the parable again, slowly, and this time certain phrases jumped out at me like they were highlighted. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. That's the church right now. That's what Jesus showed me in the vision. Believers who have fallen asleep because the wait has been so long, because the breakthrough has been delayed, because they've grown weary in the waiting. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." That's January. That's the moment when heaven breaks open, when God moves in power, when the cry goes out that He's here, He's moving, He's answering prayers. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." That's what's going to happen when people see the breakthrough coming to the faithful. They're going to panic. They're going to try to get ready at the last minute. They're going to try to borrow someone else's faith, someone else's intimacy, someone else's preparation. But it was too late. While they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of this revelation settling over me. This is what Jesus was showing me. This is why the message is so urgent. Because January is the midnight cry. January is the moment when the bridegroom arrives. And those who have oil, those who have been preparing, who have been building intimacy, who have been keeping their faith alive even in the long wait, they're going to experience breakthrough beyond anything they've imagined. But those who don't have oil, those who have been coasting, who have been complacent, who have been presuming on God's grace without actually pursuing God's presence, they're going to miss it. Not because God doesn't love them, not because God doesn't want to bless them, but because they're not ready, because they don't have the oil. "Okay, Lord," I said out loud, my voice carrying across the empty hillside. "I understand, but what is the oil? What does it mean practically? What do I tell people to do?" And that's when the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. The oil is intimacy. The oil is time spent in His presence. The oil is the daily, consistent, unglamorous work of pursuing God when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you see no evidence that it's making any difference. The oil is prayer that goes beyond your shopping list of requests. It's worship that goes beyond singing songs. It's Bible reading that goes beyond checking off a daily devotional. It's fasting that goes beyond trying to manipulate God into giving you what you want. The oil is the secret history you have with God. It's the conversations no one else hears. It's the tears no one else sees. It's the surrenders no one else knows about. It's the daily choice to seek Him first, to prioritize His presence, to value knowing Him more than you value anything He can give you. And here's the hard truth. You can't get oil at the last minute. You can't borrow it from someone else. You can't buy it in a moment of panic when you realize the bridegroom is coming and you're not ready. Oil is accumulated over time, drop by drop, day by day, choice by choice. And January 2026, is when it's going to become clear who has oil and who doesn't. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Here's the practical application. Here's the 30-day challenge that will prepare you for the breakthrough that's coming. The 30-day challenge, filling your lamp. Starting today, right now, as soon as you finish watching this video, I want you to commit to 30 days of intentional intimacy with God. Not 30 days of religious activity, not 30 days of trying to earn His favor, but 30 days of genuinely pursuing His presence, of filling your lamp with oil, of preparing yourself for the breakthrough that's coming in January. Here's what it looks like practically. 1. 30 minutes of undistracted time with God every day. Not 30 minutes of listening to worship music while you scroll through your phone. Not 30 minutes of a podcast playing in the background while you drive. But 30 minutes of focused, undistracted, face-to-face time with Jesus. Turn off your phone, close your laptop, find a quiet place, and just be with Him. Some days you'll pray, some days you'll worship, some days you'll read scripture, some days you'll just sit in silence and listen. But every day, for 30 minutes, you prioritize His presence above everything else. I know what you're thinking. "Jonathan, I don't have 30 minutes. I have work, kids, responsibilities, commitments." And I'm telling you, if you don't have 30 minutes for the God who's about to answer your impossible prayers, then you're not ready for the breakthrough. If you can find time to scroll social media, watch Netflix, or do any of the other things you do every day, you can find 30 minutes for this. This is non-negotiable. This is the foundation of everything else. 2. Repent of specific unbelief. Every day during your 30 minutes, I want you to identify one specific area where you've stopped believing God will move, one specific prayer you've given up on, one specific promise you've stopped claiming, one specific dream you've buried, and I want you to repent, not just say sorry, but actually turn around, actually choose to believe again, actually resurrect that dead hope and bring it before God with expectation. Write it down, speak it out loud, declare that you're choosing faith over fear, hope over cynicism, expectation over resignation. Jesus showed me that the biggest obstacle to breakthrough in January isn't the devil, isn't circumstances, isn't other people. It's our own unbelief. It's the ways we've limited God in our minds, the ways we've made peace with less than He promised, the ways we've convinced ourselves that maybe it's just not His will for us. That has to be repented of, daily, specifically, ruthlessly. 3. Fast from something that's competing for God's place in your life. I'm not necessarily talking about food, though that might be part of it for some of you. I'm talking about fasting from whatever has become an idol, whatever you turn to for comfort or escape or fulfillment instead of turning to God. For some of you, it's social media. For some, it's entertainment. For some, it's food. For some, it's work. For some, it's a relationship. For some, it's shopping or gaming or exercise or even ministry. Whatever it is, whatever you reach for when you're stressed, bored, lonely, or afraid, fast from it for these 30 days. And every time you feel the urge to turn to that thing, turn to God instead. Use that moment as a trigger to pray, to worship, to read scripture, to just sit in His presence. This is how you accumulate oil. This is how you train yourself to seek Him first. This is how you prepare for breakthrough. 4. Give something sacrificial. Jesus showed me that many believers have been holding back financially, waiting until they have enough before they start giving generously. But the kingdom doesn't work that way. You don't give out of your abundance. You give out of your faith. You give sacrificially, trusting that God will provide, and that's when you position yourself for the windows of heaven to open. So during these 30 days, I want you to give something that costs you, something that requires faith, something that makes you a little uncomfortable. Maybe it's a specific amount to your church or a ministry. Maybe it's paying for someone's groceries or rent. Maybe it's canceling a subscription and giving that money away instead. Maybe it's something God has been prompting you to do for months, but you've been putting off because it seemed too risky. Do it, give it, sow it, and watch what God does in response. 5. Speak life over your situation every day. Stop agreeing with the problem. Stop rehearsing the diagnosis. Stop declaring the impossibility. Stop speaking death over your marriage, your finances, your health, your children, your calling. Instead, every day during your 30 minutes, I want you to speak life. Speak God's promises over your situation. Speak breakthrough over your circumstances. Speak resurrection over your dead dreams, not as positive thinking, not as name it, claim it, but as an act of faith, as an agreement with what God has already said in His Word, as a declaration that you believe He's about to move. Your words have power. Your declarations matter. And in these 30 days leading up to January, you're going to train your mouth to speak faith instead of fear, hope instead of despair, life instead of death. Now here's what I need you to understand. This 30-day challenge isn't a formula. It's not a way to manipulate God into giving you what you want. It's not a transaction where you do these things and God owes you breakthrough. This is about positioning. This is about preparation. This is about filling your lamp with oil so that when the bridegroom comes, when January arrives and heaven breaks open and God begins to move in unprecedented ways, you're ready. You're positioned. You're able to receive what He wants to release. Because here's the truth that Jesus burned into my heart over those 3 nights at the lakeside. God wants to bless you more than you want to be blessed. He wants to answer your prayers more than you want them answered. He wants to bring breakthrough more than you want to experience breakthrough. The question is never, is God willing? The question is always, am I ready? And these 30 days, from now until the end of January, are your opportunity to get ready. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you take this challenge seriously. In the first week, you're going to feel resistance. Your schedule is going to seem impossibly busy. Your mind is going to wander during your 30 minutes. You're going to feel like you're not doing it right, like nothing is happening, like it's a waste of time. Push through. That's the enemy trying to keep you from filling your lamp. That's your flesh resisting the discipline. That's the old patterns fighting to maintain control. In the second week, something is going to shift. You're going to start looking forward to your 30 minutes. You're going to start hearing God's voice more clearly. You're going to start noticing His presence in your daily life. Small things are going to start changing. In the third week, breakthrough is going to begin. Not the full breakthrough, that's coming in January, but preview breakthrough, appetizer breakthrough. God showing you that He's heard, He's moving, He's about to do something significant. And in the fourth week, as January arrives, you're going to be positioned to receive everything God wants to release in your life. You're going to be one of the wise virgins with oil in your lamp. You're going to be one of the faithful ones who kept believing when everything said to give up. You're going to be one of the people who experiences the breakthrough that Jesus showed me in the vision. But only if you start now, only if you commit, only if you take this seriously. I'm looking out over the lake as I record this, and the sun is starting to descend toward the horizon. The light is golden, warm, beautiful, and I'm thinking about those 3 nights, the cold, the darkness, the intensity of the encounters. I'm thinking about how different this moment feels from those moments. But I know they're connected. I know that the darkness was necessary for me to see the light. I know that the cold was necessary for me to appreciate the warmth of His presence. I know that the intensity was necessary for me to understand the urgency of this message. And I know that you, yes, you, watching this right now, you're at a crossroads. You're at a threshold. You're at a moment where you have to decide, am I going to take this seriously or am I going to dismiss it? Am I going to prepare for breakthrough or am I going to stay comfortable in my complacency? Am I going to fill my lamp with oil, or am I going to presume that I'll be ready when the bridegroom comes? The choice is yours. I can't make it for you. Jesus won't force it on you. But I'm telling you, I'm prophesying to you, that January 2026 is going to be the most significant spiritual month of your life one way or another. Either it's going to be the month when impossible prayers are answered, when breakthrough comes, when heaven opens over your life in ways you've never experienced. Or it's going to be the month when you realize you weren't ready, when you see others experiencing breakthrough while you're still stuck, when the door shuts and you're left outside wondering what happened. I don't want that for you. Jesus doesn't want that for you. That's why He gave me this message. That's why He showed me these things over 3 consecutive nights. That's why I'm sitting here on this rocky overlook recording this final part, begging you to take this seriously. Here's what I need you to do right now. First, leave a comment. Tell me you're committing to the 30-day challenge. Type, I'm filling my lamp, or 30 days, or January 2026, or whatever phrase confirms that you're in, that you're taking this seriously, that you're going to prepare for breakthrough. I want to see thousands of comments from people who are making this commitment. I want to create a community of believers who are all pursuing the same thing, all preparing for the same moment, all believing for the same breakthrough. Second, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications, because over the next 30 days, I'm going to be posting regular updates, encouragements, teachings, and testimonies related to this challenge. I'm going to be walking through this with you. I'm going to be sharing what God is showing me as we approach January. You're not doing this alone. We're doing this together. Third, share this video. I know that sounds self-serving, like I'm just trying to get views or grow my platform, but that's not what this is about. This is about getting the message to as many people as possible before January arrives. This is about making sure that everyone who's supposed to hear this warning, this invitation, this call to prepare, that they actually hear it. So share it on your social media, send it to your friends and family, post it in your church groups, email it to people you know who need breakthrough. Don't worry about what people will think. Don't worry about seeming weird or overly spiritual or fanatical. Just get the message out there and trust God with the results. Fourth, mark your calendar. January 1st, 2026 is the beginning. That's when the 30-day window opens. That's when heaven begins to break through in unprecedented ways. That's when God begins to answer the prayers of the faithful. But the preparation starts now, today, this moment. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't tell yourself you'll start tomorrow or next week or when things calm down. Start right now. As soon as you finish watching this video, find a quiet place, set a timer for 30 minutes, and begin. I want to end by telling you what happened as I was sitting here on this overlook, preparing to record this final part. A wind came up, sudden and strong, just like the wind that came during the encounters. And as it blew across the hillside, I heard that voice again, that knowing in my spirit. Tell them I love them. Tell them I'm not angry with them. Tell them I'm not trying to scare them or manipulate them or control them. Tell them I'm inviting them into the greatest adventure of their lives. Tell them that January is not about judgment. It's about joy. It's not about condemnation. It's about celebration. It's not about what they've done wrong. It's about what I'm about to do right. And I started weeping again. Because that's the heart of this whole message. That's what Jesus was trying to communicate through all 3 nights of encounters. through all the visions and warnings and revelations. He loves you. He's for you. He wants breakthrough for you more than you want it for yourself. And January is his gift to you, his opportunity to demonstrate his faithfulness, his power, his intimate involvement in every detail of your life. But you have to be ready. You have to prepare. You have to fill your lamp with oil. So will you? Will you take the challenge? Will you commit to 30 days of intentional intimacy with God? Will you position yourself to receive everything He wants to release in January? I'm praying that you will. I'm believing that thousands of you, maybe hundreds of thousands, are going to take this seriously, are going to prepare, are going to be ready when the bridegroom comes at midnight. And when January arrives, when heaven breaks open, when impossible prayers are answered and breakthrough comes and God moves in ways that leave no doubt it was Him, I want to hear your testimonies. I want to celebrate with you. I want to rejoice over what God has done in your life. But it starts now, today, this moment. The sun is setting over the lake. The golden light is fading to orange, then pink, then purple. Soon it will be dark again, and the stars will come out, and another night will begin. But this time, I'm not going back to the lakeside. I've received the message. I've delivered the warning. I've issued the challenge. Now it's up to you. January 2026 is coming. The threshold is approaching. The bridegroom is on his way. Will you be ready? Final word. It's now 5:43 p.m. The sun has set. I'm walking back down the hillside toward the house, and I'm thinking about everything that's happened over the past 4 days, the encounters, the visions, the revelations, the weight of this message. And I'm thinking about you, about the person watching this who's been praying for healing for years, about the person who's been believing for their prodigal child to come home, about the person who's been trusting God for financial breakthrough, about the person who's been waiting for their calling to be activated, about the person who's been hoping for their marriage to be restored. This is your moment. January 2026 is your month. The breakthrough you've been praying for is coming, but you have to be ready. So take the challenge, fill your lamp, prepare your heart, position yourself. And when January comes, when heaven breaks open and God moves and your impossible prayers are answered, remember this moment. Remember this message. Remember that Jesus loved you enough to warn you, to invite you, to prepare you for the greatest breakthrough of your life. I'll see you in January, with oil in your lamp and faith in your heart. Ready for breakthrough. Leave your commitment in the comments below. Type, "I'm filling my lamp right now." And let's prepare together for what God is about to do. January 2026. The threshold, the breakthrough, the moment everything changes. Are you ready?